Today's guest has held a range of senior executive positions, including president, corporate CFO, operating CFO, and corporate controller roles at such notable companies as PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, and Reader's Digest. He began his career as an audit partner for KPMG, where he served numerous clients that are global household names. He most recently served as chief financial officer of a national logistics and distribution business, where he built a finance and IT organization that supported over 100% growth through acquisition and organic expansion. Today, he's an effective business advisor and coach who believes in making big, lasting impacts by building businesses properly from the foundation up using a value-based approach. Please welcome Sean Orr to the show. How are you?
Hi, Jillian. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited. There's so many things inside your intro that I'm like, there's so much value that people are going to get from today's episode, because I completely agree with you that we've got to build our businesses from the foundation up. Yep. And sometimes when you're starting your small business, that's not where you start. A lot of times you start with the fun stuff. So let's dive in, because I think the most important thing is, what are common operation issues? I feel like we all struggle with that. And you have such a vast knowledge that what's something that all businesses have, regardless of how big or small they are?
Okay. Well, let's start with fundamentally, all businesses do the same thing. If you make a product, you make it, you move it, you sell it. You bill your customer and you collect the money. If you're a service business, you provide a service, you capture the cost of that service, and you bill it to your client. So the basics of all businesses are the same. And the principles of running the business are the same. If you take a manufacturing business, they have to make a good product. They have to know their costs in order to price their product properly. They have to focus on product quality. They need to have good delivery systems that deliver on time, need to have great customer service. They need to have a sales and marketing organization that is not only effective, but customer-centric. And they need to have timely and accurate reporting. Now, the biggest difference between larger companies and smaller companies is in the mechanics. Startup businesses rely very heavily on key people to get things done. And oftentimes, they're actually relying on daily heroics from their key people to get things done. And that's a model that works when you're small, but it doesn't work as you get bigger. Larger scale companies rely more on process and technology. The challenge for smaller startup businesses is to recognize when it is time to make the transition to more scalable processes and tech support. And most of these startups will often need help with this transition, because their management teams simply don't have the experience in building up that capability from the ground up that we've already talked about a little bit.
That is so true. I couldn't agree with you more. There's so much that you just said that I'm like, that right there is huge. There's so many different businesses that could benefit from each one of those individual things, because most of them are probably struggling in one area or another. Have you seen, is there one spot where you consistently see businesses struggle that you're like, hey, this is a big one that you want to watch out for?
I would say that one of the biggest problems that I see in most businesses, and I come out of my academy training is with PepsiCo, where planning is religion. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later on, but Frito-Lay's finance organizations basically ran the company because that's where planning existed. And most companies do a poor job of planning. So they're playing catch up. They're reacting to a certain surge in demand. They're reacting to hiccups that happen in the operation, oftentimes hiccups that are easily anticipated. So I would say the failure to plan and operating on a hand-to-mouth reaction mode is a failure in almost all businesses, but it's very common in particular in small businesses.
I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like we see that all the time on the news. Like there's these companies that make these gut jerk decisions, and then later on they're trying to go back and fix it because they realize they went too far too fast. So I think that's a really
Absolutely.
good advice.
I have, dealing as an informal advisor to somebody who owns a food business here in South Florida. And the way this business operates is every time they get a new account, like Winn-Dixie, a major supermarket chain, or Publix, or Whole Foods, the demand for their products surges. And every time that happens, they're scrambling to figure out how to meet the demand. And what I'm trying to get them to focus on is creating, and look, planning in a Frito-Lay is very, very different than planning in a $10 million revenue food business. You still need planning. And what I'm trying to get them to do is establish some rudimentary planning capability so they can start thinking ahead rather than continuing to run the business day in and day out in a crisis mode.
Absolutely. And there's probably ways that small businesses can reduce their costs without sacrificing the quality of their products or service, because when they are so rushed, that's probably the first thing that falls apart, right?
Well, yes, but we're in difficult times right now, and a lot of companies right now are too focused maybe on cost reduction, and let me explain why. If you look at some of the great companies in this economy or around the world, like Apple, like FedEx, just to name two, they got their start in difficult times. Difficult times when markets are looking for solutions. So let me give you a story I heard just last week. There were two different restaurant businesses in the same market. COVID hits. And now all of a sudden, customers cannot come to your restaurant. The first owner says, gee, there's nothing I can do about this. Isn't this terrible? My customers can't come to the stores anymore. I'm going to have to shut down. And they did. Restaurant number two says, gee, our customers can't come to the restaurant anymore. They need to eat at home. I need to change the configuration of my restaurant, add kitchen capacity, set up drive-in windows, establish home delivery, and get the meals to my customers where my customers are now eating their meals. The second restaurant now has over 12 locations, and their business is going through the roof. So the same crisis caused one owner to shut down after they couldn't cut costs enough, and had another owner innovate and create solutions that met the customer's needs. And it was the best thing that ever happened to his business, and he's expanded 12-fold. So message number one is job one is to be creative, to be innovative, to up level and find and create solutions that will work for your customers. Now, having said that, it is smart to also tightly manage your costs. And step number one is just to know where you're spending your money and why. You must first understand your cost structure and totally understand where and how you're spending your money, focusing first of all on your non-product costs and discretionary spending. You need to have at least the financial reporting that's detailed enough to give you the answers to those questions. And you need to have a person or team that's responsible for analyzing all expense spending, because I've never seen a case where there isn't a set of expenses that can't be either reduced, deferred, or optimized if you take a good hard look at them. Let me give you an example, and I know this is a tough one, but many small companies waste a lot of money because they hang on to unproductive employees for too long. Now, they first of all should do everything they can to train and coach their people to better performance. but they can't be afraid to deal with non-performers when they just simply have too many people. Because the people in your organization know when they're not performing, or they know when somebody else is not performing. They know when you have too many people and people do not have enough to do. And this is not only not good for your bottom line, it's not good for your culture, and it's also not good for your credibility as a leader. So you need to be willing to step up to that. But when you do, you need to also do it the right way. Now, the best answer is to keep growing and create new opportunities for your people. Now, relative to product costs, if there are ways to make the production process in your company more efficient through either automation or process improvement, important caveat here, without negatively impacting product quality, then those can also be very, very good cost reductions. And what these process improvements can do is they can make the business and your production process more scalable as you grow. And they can also make your quality more consistent because you're using more of a systematized approach to producing your product. But the one thing you should never do is reduce cost if it's going to damage product quality. That should be avoided at no cost because it's a clear no-no.
There's so many things that you just touched on that I want to cycle back to because so many good things. One thing that stood out for me for sure was when you were talking about culture. What do you think is the best way to get employees aligned with the company's mission statement? Because I know that's something that we as business owners, we all struggle with employees and getting everybody on the same page and being able to determine, is this person still the right fit for my company? Do I need to, move them on to their next mission, or can we coach them to a position that is good for everybody?
This is a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. I come out of PepsiCo where culture is a religion, but the things I'm going to tell you work whether you're dealing with a 400,000 employee company like PepsiCo or the 30 employee company that I ran when I ran a startup popcorn business as president. But it starts at the top with owners and the company leadership, because first of all, you need to define your vision, your mission, your values. Then you need to clearly communicate them. And then you need to measure and reward good performance that's consistent with that vision and mission and values. Now, with the first step, it sounds pretty simple to define your mission, have a mission statement, have a value statement, a strategic plan. But many companies, large and small, fall short on this. But without them, you can't have a strong, cohesive company culture. Secondly, even if they have them, they don't always do a good job of communicating them. And let me tell you a great story here. And this, maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but when John F. Kennedy was first elected in 1960, he makes a speech where he's on television, where he says the United States is going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. We ended up putting a man on the moon in 1969, a year ahead of schedule. But in NASA, putting a man on the moon was religion. That was clearly the mission from top to bottom. So maybe a year later, John F. Kennedy is visiting NASA and walking the hallways, and he sees the janitor, and he stops the janitor, and he asks the janitor what he was doing. And the janitor looks John F. Kennedy in the eye and he goes, "I'm putting a man on the moon." What happened there is NASA had done such a great job of internalizing this mission so that everybody in the company understood what their role was and understood that they all played a part in the mission of putting the man on the moon, took pride in it, and that's why they came to work with such energy every day. So communicating the mission is very, very important. I'll get back to that in a minute. But then the third is you got to measure and reward behavior. And you can do that through codes of conduct and the way you evaluate performance. But your code of conduct and your measurement systems of what you reward need to be consistent with the mission, the values, and the strategy. So let me give you 2 examples. When we were at Frito-Lay, we used mantras. So for example, in product development, the mantra was quality is king. It's plastered on the walls, and everywhere you turn, people are wearing T-shirts, quality is king. But it was very, very clear, and it was an embedded part of the product development culture, that quality was king. When you went to the sales organization, the mantra was take back the streets. And the point there was we're looking to gain market share. And we were a door-to-door distribution business. So taking back the streets was a very meaningful way of expressing that mission to our sales organization. In operations, it was find a better way, find a more efficient way to do the same thing without losing quality, because remember, quality was king. And lastly, for everybody else, it was focused on the front line, because our front line, our salespeople, were the only part of the organization that interacted with the customer. And we wanted to make sure that that front line was always successful, because that's what counted to the customer. Now, we use posters, videos, T-shirts, index cards. Everybody walked around with a card with their mission statement on it. But the key was we're trying to make it inspiring, and we're trying to make it fun. So I talk about rewards and recognition. Let me give you another example, and this comes out of Kentucky Fried Chicken. They used to have a monthly rubber chicken award. Okay, and what they would do is give it to the employee of the month. And the employee of the month would get the rubber chicken in their office for a month, which they took great pride in having. Their picture was put on a wall of fame as a winner of the rubber chicken award. And for that month, they got a special parking spot right near the front door of the building. Now, this didn't cost them anything. And every month, when they awarded the rubber chicken award, the CEO got in a T-shirt and a hat and led a band that went down the hallways marching until they got to the office of the winner of the rubber chicken award to celebrate that person and to give that person recognition for the month. But in order to win the award, this person had to live the company's values and deliver against the mission of the company. So you can use tools like this that are a lot of fun, they're entertaining and inspiring, and they do get people's attention. And like I said, you don't have to be a big company to do this. It works just as well, if not better, in small companies.
Well, and like you said, it doesn't have to be something that you spend a ton of money on. It can be something as easy as an index card in the pocket. I mean, index cards are affordable, and you can build from there. And I think that's what a lot of small businesses need, is that you can start small and grow as your company grows. Now, what area of business operations should a business look at first when they know they're going to grow and scale?
Okay, and these are nice challenges to have. And I really enjoy dealing with scaling up businesses. So they are nice challenges to have to a degree if you know what you're doing. But I think the first place most companies should look is the production process. Because as you grow, you're going to need to expand capacity. And a lot of times you want to keep your manufacturing process proprietary. So for example, with this food company I mentioned before, one of the tricks was they didn't want to outsource to a competitor and have the competitor co-pack their product, because they didn't want to teach their competitor how to make their product, right? So generally, you're going to be looking at how to expand your capacity to make product at the same high quality that you're making it today. And the larger you get, the more likely you will need to add better design processes and technology to allow you to repeat the same manufacturing tasks over and over again with the same excellence without losing quality. And if you do it right, you may even be able to improve quality, or at least the consistency of your quality when you do that. Now, other parts of your business hopefully can be a little bit more generic, and you can have a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you scale them. For example, shipping and distribution usually can be scaled up, at least initially, using third-party logistics providers and outside warehousing. Sales and marketing maybe could be scaled up by using outsiders, but it very much depends on your particular sales process. But if you're growing fast, all of your functions need to scale up over time. And the mistake many companies make is that they don't have the internal expertise to scale up in many or most of the areas of their business. And as I said before, they don't plan on it. So they're always playing catch up, which is not good. I'll give you another example. It's another company I'm working, or at least having some informal discussions with. This is a company that about 18 months ago had $40 million in sales. Right now, they're at $150 million in sales, heading towards $2 million in sales, and they don't have a chief financial officer, which means their finance function is operating like an old-fashioned back office of a very, very small company. And it really concerns me that and I keep telling them, guys, you need to do something about this soon before something blows up on you. Okay, here is a case of a company that has not scaled up parts of their business as they've grown immensely over a very, very short period of time. They're able to service their customers, but they're not able to manage their business effectively, and it is going to cost them over time. Now, what often stymies companies is that these scaling up investments do at times, or are at times, inconvenient, to say the least. And that's why I'd encourage all companies to develop at least a high-level growth plan, so that these investments can be anticipated and planned for. And that's true whether the investments are capital or people. So one last example, we even did this at a country club that I ran for 6 years when I was on the board as the president of the club. And having this kind of plan really does help. We built a 10-year capital plan at this club and managed it pretty consistently. We ended up completing the plan well ahead of schedule, and now that planning process is religion at the club. And if you can do this kind of thing at a country club, for every one of the 500 members thinks they own the place, you can do it in your business as well.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because we've talked about so much stuff today, and all of it has been amazing. Whether you are a product-based business or a service-based business, there are little things that you can do every day to move yourself forward. And if you are a bigger business, of course, you can make those small steps even bigger. But what's one piece of advice that you would give to a small business owner who might be struggling with some of the things that we've talked about today?
Okay, well, I'll give you two pieces of advice here, Jillian, two for the price of one. First of all, a small business owner or an entrepreneur should surround him or herself with people that are smarter than them, especially in their areas of excellence. They shouldn't feel they have to know or do everything themselves. They shouldn't be their own chief everything officer, because a chief everything officer is a slave to the business. And they shouldn't be afraid to ask for help, including outside advice from outside experts or a coach, because most great CEOs, athletes, and even presidents of the United States rely on coaches and outside experts, because no one is an expert at everything. The second thing I would say, is that they need to understand that as businesses grow, they evolve from being infants to toddlers to teens to mature adults, just like people do. And companies need to operate differently in these various different phases of their life. A $1 million revenue business cannot operate the same way as a $10 million business, or a $100 million business, or a $1 billion business, and so on and so on. And most business owners and their teams need to evolve as the company matures. This is a very hard thing for small companies to do, especially since the evolution happens across the whole company. Look at the example I just gave you, the $150 million company with no finance organization. So again, here's an area where you shouldn't be too proud to ask for outside experts or coaches who have done it before to come in and help you, because it can be a huge help. So the bottom line is never, ever be reluctant to invest in yourself. And that's how I would leave it with you, Jillian.
I completely agree. And if people that are listening to this podcast and resonate with the things that you said and are like, I need help with this, I need an expert, I need someone that has done this before, where can people connect with you? Where's the best place for them to reach out? Okay,
well, my wife and I are in business together, and the name of our business is called LDV Elite. LDV stands for La Dolce Vita. Our website is www.ldvelite, all one word, .com. And they can find out more about me by logging into www.ldvelite.com/Sean, and Sean is spelled SEAN.
Perfect. And I'll be able to.
And if they log in, excuse me, Jillian, one last thing. If they do log in and look me up, they will find that they can apply for a complimentary 1-hour strategy session with me. There's an application form, and I need some information before I can schedule it. But you can apply for a complimentary session if you log into that website.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for offering that to all of our listeners. And thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge with us today. There is something that every small business can take away from today and implement in their business. So thank you so much for being with us here today.
Okay. Thank you, Jillian. It was a pleasure.